Couldn't get a whole lot of drone footage because we were getting bounced around by some 20-knot winds up there. You can see the drone kind of shifting around and trying to keep on station there. And the sky looks a whole lot different. It looks like a lot of cumuliform clouds coming in from the south. Definitely looks like late summer with that very deep southerly pattern kind of settling in. Well, welcome to the Forecast Lab once again. And here we can see that southerly flow there in Texas. See that coming on north and starting to see some 70s dew points spreading inland right there. Very moist pattern, but we've got the dry line just off to the west, and there it is right there. Now, see, that could be a front, because if you go back into that dry air mass, we're seeing 60s and 70s. So to really figure that out for sure, we need to look at the thickness charts and see what's really going on out there. Because, you know, that could be a little Pacific front moving through. So we'll see. Out to the west, a little bit of high pressure moving into Arizona and then shifting out to California there. They've had a very active weather pattern. And let's see, what do we got going on? Westerly winds in Southern California. So high pressure offshore. Southerly flow in the San Joaquin Valley, San Francisco. Okay, this is getting indicative of maybe a frontal system approaching the area. Okay, yeah, that pattern in California, that looks like it's kind of a warm air advection pattern. So we've probably got a little system offshore there that may be associated with a bit of a warm front south of that area. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm thinking there. And for the southeastern U.S., very weak frontal system there in Arkansas and Oklahoma. 1008 millibar low there. Yeah, that's not very strong at all, but it's enough to get a little bit of northerly flow going there in Missouri and Kansas. Some cooler conditions in that area. And then looking out towards Atlanta and Savannah, very well-defined warm front. You can see we've got that contrast between 78 to 82 in Savannah and 62 there in Southern Carolina near Columbia and Charleston. And north of there, you can see that marginal VFR, ceilings, poor weather, some showers. So it's a very textbook warm front. And I guess they didn't get much relief in Florida, still looking at 80s there. It's been a very stagnant weather pattern in that region, but they are getting a little bit more of a dry southwesterly flow off the Gulf. Here's a situation in the northeast U.S. Still dominated by high pressure there over the Great Lakes. This has been a persistent pattern for the past maybe 4 or 5 days. So stagnant weather in that area, more northerly flow in Ohio, Indiana, a little bit of isentropic lift, giving some stratocumulus ceilings in that area. And then we go further out to the west, and we've got an approaching warm front from the Dakotas. There it is right there. On one side, we've got 40s in Minnesota. On the other side, downslope with mid-50s. And gusty conditions back behind that front. And moving out to the northwest, well, you can ignore this little thing here. That was kind of an accident. But yeah, cold front coming down from Alberta into Saskatchewan. Further out in the Pacific Northwest, looks pretty quiet. Maybe a small trough going through the Boise area. And in the Portland, Seattle area, some southerly flow. Looks like maybe warm air advection patterns setting up. So we've probably got a little bit of a low offshore there. And I think other than that, I don't see much else going on. So we'll shift to the upper level charts. Here's a look at what we have going on right now for heights and vorticity. We've got a little bit more of an amplified pattern. So we're going to start looking at the long wave pattern. Looks like maybe a long wave trough across the U.S. associated with the cool March conditions we've been seeing. Out over the Pacific, ridging, kind of a broad ridge. And they're, not up there, extending from Hawaii up to Alaska. Big ridge. And there's the downstream trough there approaching the Washington coast. Remember we talked about that warm air advection taking place right there. Looks like a jet max coming down, approaching the California coast like that. So yeah, that gives us support for maybe a bit of a frontal system in that area. Just going strictly off that, I would be thinking maybe a frontal system like that there. And then the rest of the front, let's see, where does that go? Kind of splits. See, there's the northerly front right there. A couple different segments. And the southern stream, I think that goes about like that right there. So a bit of a split flow pattern. Looks like maybe a little bit of a disturbance from Missouri to Indiana. Probably helping to keep those clouds and whatever rain is going on out there, helping to support that. And let's see, what else do we got? Yeah, this jet here is probably supporting that front that's over Arkansas. So run something like that. Very, very flat trough. So we're not going to see too much alignment with that, the features in that trough and the surface systems. But what we do have is the ridging coming in from the west. See that right there? So we should see a little bit of an improvement in conditions in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. There's the area downstream that gets the subsidence. And then after that ridge passes, maybe tomorrow, that ridge will probably be out in this area. And then we'll see the trough itself starting to approach the Rockies and the high plains. And I figured I'd take a quick look over there in Europe and see what's going on. Wow, they got a cutoff low right there over the Adriatic Sea. Probably getting some showery conditions there in northern Italy where they've had that coronavirus problem going on. We've got a very well-developed ridge, almost a cutoff high there. This is almost a Rex block altogether. See all that there? Got the big upper-level ridge north of the cutoff low. So that's sort of a blocking pattern there. And let's just see what happens over the next 24 hours. Some retrogression of the upper-level trough to the west towards France and Spain. There's the big cutoff high trying to slide over the top. Doing a little tango there. And let's see. Some dissipation of that big vortex splits off into a couple different weaker cutoff lows, and then looks like the northern one gets picked up by this trough coming out of the northern Atlantic. And then we see things return to more of a conventional polar front pattern. And let's see what it looks like at the surface. So there's the surface conditions, and the first thing that I like to look at jumping into these charts is not the pressure patterns but the thickness. See right here, we can make out this blob of cold air. And that's helping to support that little upper level low over the Adriatic. So that's the reason that low is there. It's a barotropic cold core low. It looks like it extends into Hungary, Romania, Moldova a little bit. And let's see, the center of the low itself looks like it's right there over the Adriatic. So this is kind of the pattern that we often see in California during March. Very similar pattern. Get a lot of diurnal showers during the day, kind of cool and cloudy at night, and then it starts up again the next day. So let's see, over the next couple of days, well, it's a pretty good low coming out of Libya there. And we'll see what happens over the rest of the week going into the weekend. There's a little low, I guess it kind of joins up with a cold core low, and then we start seeing the return to a more conventional polar front pattern. And we certainly see that with this Atlantic system coming into the UK. And that's going to give us northerly flow on the east side of that. So it's going to be kind of windy and blustery there in the UK. And you can see this cold air coming down. That's some good cold air advection. So let's see. Do we have a front? Good question. I guess probably we do. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that's what the fronts look like to me. So those will be supported by that upper level jet, and the whole pattern will shift southeast over the weekend. And then let's see, going into Sunday and Monday, a little bit of snow starting up in northern Germany, some snow in Switzerland and Austria, and we can see that low really, that baroclinic system developing there in the south part of France, northern Italy. Cold air advection coming back in behind it. And then it looks like a lot of it gets hung up there on the Alps. The Alps kind of goes through this area here, so there's some blocking of that going on. And most of the cold air slides off to the east to Russia, and then some more development out to the west for next week. So that's how things look in Europe. All right, let's go back home and look at our forecast. So here's the setup for tonight, and we talked at the very beginning about the possibility of a front in Texas, like a Pacific front. Do we see that? No, not really. So that's probably a dry line kind of in this area. The main area of thickness is way out here, and that's really not enough to support a Pacific front in Texas. Maybe a little cold front right there in the Albuquerque area. But anyway, yeah, there's the southern stream system right there. Some unsettled weather in Tennessee, and that'll be moving eastward tonight. And then this new little Alberta clipper coming out of the Dakotas. I guess that'll be moving either east or southeast. Here's what things look like for tomorrow night. Looks like that Alberta clipper goes mostly to the southeast and picks up some showery activity with bands of frozen precip up there in northern Wisconsin. So new blast of cold air coming through Iowa and Nebraska. The old stagnant Georgia, Alabama system heads offshore. There it is right there. And things get kind of unsettled in Baja California, Arizona, and California itself. So I put this little indication of an area that I want to watch for possible frontogenesis, possibly on up into northern New Mexico. Because there's a lot of thickness bands right there. And we can see up in California, looks like a cold core low up in that area. So it's going to be kind of showery. Anywhere from Fresno, Bakersfield on up north to Sacramento and Portland. Here's the situation for Thursday. Look at that. Just strong, stout southerly flow in Texas. There it is, coming up off the Gulf. And frontal systems in the Central Plains. There goes one wave in Illinois heading eastward. And our old Alberta clipper that was up in Minnesota, looks like that goes mostly east. I guess it's taking a track kind of like that. And another really cold Alberta clipper coming out of Alberta there. Still looks like an area of frontogenesis there in Baja California into Arizona, so I'm continuing to watch this area. And then the main cold core low itself heading into the Los Angeles area. So it looks like kind of a showery Thursday for places like Oxnard, San Bernardino, Pasadena, LA, all that, Glendale. Here's the situation we have on Friday. We finally get our bear clinic development there in the Rockies. Now I can definitely make out a front there moving into West Texas. You can see that cold air back there in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. And there's the cold core upper level low. How did I find that? Well, look at the thickness lines. It kind of paints out this really extensive troughing, and we start picking up the blue 540 lines. So yeah, this is all cold upper level temperatures and upper level troughing. And that'll help destabilize things out ahead of it. Now I think there's also the potential for a dry line in Texas. Not sure where that is. Maybe it's just based off of experience. I would say maybe something like that. So the only way to know for sure is to look at the dew point chart and see what it's doing. But I think, there's a possibility for, well, I don't know. It's not breaking out any convection in Texas, so things may be too dry at the surface or too warm aloft to get storms forming. Because I would expect to see some storms developing here, but this is the 0Z chart, and we're not seeing that. But yeah, it looks like something does get going overnight. Out ahead of the cold front. So let's see. Breaking out storms west of Fort Worth, maybe about 3Z. So squall line gets going. And then, yeah, not much support there. It kind of falls apart. So this is all going to be a lot of forced convection and probably not a whole lot of severe weather. But there's a good front. Saturday morning, heading into East Texas and inclusion heading up into Kansas, and then the warm front itself lifting north into Missouri and Illinois. And we'll see what happens over the evening hours. There's the warm front, there's the cold front, and let's see, yeah, here we go. Now, this might have some potential for severe weather. The reason I'm saying is that is because the forecast convection has kind of a granular look, which suggests maybe clusters of development. Doesn't quite look like forcing. So we're going to watch for that potential from Huntsville, Nashville, Lexington, Indianapolis for Saturday night. Everything moves quickly to the east. Some cold air coming into the Ohio and Mississippi River Valley for Sunday. And finally, the return flow sets up once again in Texas. It's going to be a little bit cool all the way down to the Gulf, so that means isentropic lift, maybe some cloudy weather to start out Monday. And what happens after that? Oh yeah, look at that, kind of a backdoor front developing. See that? See this ridging way up here? It's really hard to see, but there's this huge high pressure area up in Hudson Bay region with this ridge extending all the way down. You can see that kind of really wedges in there. It's like a big chunk of cold air that just gets lodged all the way down to Texas and the Gulf, and there it is. That's gonna hang in there for much of next week. It's going to be kind of a cloudy pattern, some showers in the western part of that region, and yeah, do all that isentropic lift, and looks like another well-developed system moving across the Rockies by the 2nd, and this looks like it's a little further north. Yeah, see, that goes all the way up into the Dakotas. Hey, we might be spreading some deep Gulf moisture all the way up there. It's hard to imagine chase potential in the Dakotas in early April, but it certainly could happen. You know, we certainly saw something like that back on May 13th of 1990. Feel free to look that up. That was a big tornado outbreak in Nebraska with a very similar pattern to this. And let's see, after that, it's like typical spring weather, typical April weather. And looks cool, yeah. Another 1040 millibar high up there in Canada, so I guess we're going to have another few weeks of below normal temperatures in the eastern and central U.S. And from our mailbag, after watching your videos this evening, I'd like to recommend a site for cross-sections, WeatherNerds.org. Oh, that's pretty cool. I'm glad to hear that there's more sources like this out there. We'll give it a try. Only within the various computer models, not the current analysis. That's okay. I mean, it's good to be able to slice and dice computer models. I'd appreciate your evaluation as to its pros and cons. Well, let's take just a really quick look before we go, and maybe we can use this a little bit more, and I'll talk to them about maybe integrating that with our webcast. So here we are, WeatherNerds.org, GFS data. Looks interesting. Well, let's see. First off, I haven't seen this site before. Let me advance it up to the current time. Let's see, how do we do that? Yeah, next forecast hour. Okay, so we're going forward in 3-hour increments. Remember from that analysis we had that feature dry line. Could be a cold front still. I mean, I don't know. It is cooler back there. So I'm not going to totally rule that out. But yeah, there it is, whatever it is coming out. There's the polar front, and then the warm front kind of goes like that. So we can certainly see it. So I'm going to put it in this cross-section mode. I'm going to go from South Texas up to Illinois. Let's see what happens. Okay, I've got it drawn. Get cross-section. Okay, that looks easy enough. All right, what do we got here? Okay, yeah, I like that. It shows a little inset of where cross-section is. It goes from A to B. So, yeah, A to B, that's very intuitive. And it's at equal interval millibars, which I kind of like because that emphasizes the lower levels. Otherwise, you get totally taken over on the chart by the upper levels because the way the pressure surfaces are logarithmic. So, yeah, let's see. What do we got here? I can see the isentropic field. That's really nice. Let's see the shading for up to 160. What is that going to be? That's going to be the wind. Yeah, so the shading, yeah, we can see the upper level jet. So that's the polar front jet right there. About 2/3 of the way up. So that's going to be, yeah, just north of that warm front in Missouri. And then we've got another set of lines, 12, 18. What is that going to be? Okay, yeah, that's going to be temperature. So there's the 0 line. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, we can see icing layers. It's kind of showing the critical icing layer, 0 through -12, and then there's the dendritic growth zone, so we can see that. Yeah, this is a really nice interface. I'm going to talk to them and see about integrating this into our webcast. So I appreciate that, Kay. I don't know if you were joking about the social distancing thing and not giving your name. If you want credit, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll just call you Kay for now. All right, yeah, let's see. What else is on here? Next forecast hour. I wonder if I can do back and forth on the cross-section. Yeah, 21Z. That's pretty nice. Of course, you have to wait a second for it to load. So I went ahead and did a cross-section from Nevada to Florida. Now, another thing that I like is it shows the terrain. So you can see what's going on there. All right, yeah, let's see if we can use that to deconstruct that front. Let me go back. Let's see, how do we get out of here? Back to zoom mode? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that front is right in this area here, so I'm going to try to do a cross-section from the cool air all the way down to Louisiana. So let's give that a shot. Let's start from Nevada. No, that's not it. Yeah, we're going to do like that from about Austin, Nevada to, I'm going to go just south of Louisiana, get our cross-section. So we're looking from east to west, or sorry, west to east. So this is Nevada here. That's Nevada. This is Utah, Colorado, and then it's West Texas, and there's East Texas. So let's see, what do we see here? I don't see any evidence of a cold front. The isotropes are kind of following the terrain. If there was a cold front, I would kind of expect to see the isotropes kind of dipping down like that. Those black lines, those are the isotropes. And then the shading, the coloring, the spectrum thing, that's the wind speed. But we're kind of aligned with the jet stream, so that's not going to mean all that much. But I do kind of see the slope in the isotropic surfaces right there. See, if we're at 500 millibars and we go east to west, I can see that the air mass is definitely cooler out in the western U.S. And so what do we need to bend those frontal surfaces down to the ground and get that going? Well, to do that, we need some cooling out here and some warming out here, and that requires low pressure. So we've got to get that cyclogenesis in the Rockies to be able to get that, convert all this to frontogenesis. So maybe we can check this out in the days ahead. I'll email these guys and see what they think about us using this, and that may be another tool we can check out. If you enjoy the Weathercast, please support our Patreon. It's very important if you want to see these keep cranking out, because these do take hours every day, and it's a matter of time prioritization. So there's our Patreon address. You can send in a tip if you enjoy them, and if so, we'll be here in the weeks and months ahead. Anyway, I hope you all stay healthy and take your precautions, and social distancing. That is very important. All right, guys. Have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.